Hey, you guys. Welcome to this week's Wisdom Wednesday. I'm super excited to be here with you guys. Bear with me today because I have a story to tell, and I want for you guys to take from it what I took from it. So, I got my notes. I got to make sure I say it right, do it right, so that you guys get the most that you possibly can from it, like I did. Okay, so today's story is based on a book that I read a long time ago, actually. It's called Quitter by Jon Acuff. So, one part of his book, he talks about an underdog story, and I just want to relay that to you guys so that you can kind of gain a sense of direction and just realize that where you are, if you're on some kind of journey, is a great place to be, and it's where you want to be, and it's also a way to shift your mindset from this one story I'm going to talk about and kind of shift it more towards another story and how things really are, and they actually are, basically. So first off, I want to kind of lay a backstory just with dealing with March Madness. So I'm going to take us to March Madness, okay? March Madness, if you don't know, is basically this big basketball tournament that happens every single year around March time. It's the NCAA men's basketball tournament. And what they do is they pit the number one teams against the lowest number team. So they might pick the number one seed and pit them against the number 16 seed, and they have to play each other in that first round of games. And then the number two seed goes against the number 15 seed, and they have to play against each other during that first game. So they do that all the way down the line. And of course, the number 9 seed against the number 8 seed isn't as exciting a game as it is when you watch the number 16 seed play the number 1 seed, and there's this possibility that the number 16 seed might just beat the number 1 seed. Those are like the most fun games, the favorite amongst all the fans, and they're just so exciting. And why is because it's like the underdog, it just might win this game, and they might advance and knock the number 1 seed or the number 2 seed off the charts, right? So that's why it's so exciting. It's an underdog story. And who doesn't like a good underdog story where the person who was on the bottom becomes at the top and they're just like, yeah. So yeah, that's where this is kind of basing from, you guys. So where I want to take this is the story of Goliath. David and Goliath, okay, from the Bible. I'm sure many people have heard this story, know this story, but I want to give it a different spin. And I want to compare it to the Cinderella story, okay? The story of David, we've all heard it. It's this super small, insignificant boy who can't even fit the adult armor, and he ends up defeating this big, huge 10-foot giant named Goliath with just a sling and a stone. Everyone loves that story. And basically, after he does that, it swings the entire future of a nation, the nation of Israel. And a lot of times this story gets confused with the Cinderella story, right? You hear these two things said in the same sentence sometimes. You'll be watching like a game where it's like that number 1 seed against the number 16 seed, and the number 16 wins, and you'll hear the commentator be like, oh man, this is a classic David versus Goliath. Blank University is a real Cinderella story. And they'll put them in the same sentence. And so I really think that sometimes the story of David and Goliath gets skewed. And, the author of this book kind of draws attention to that and shows us, how this is getting skewed and where the differences are and how our minds should actually be working, okay? So the hinge moment for Cinderella, the breaking point, the turning point for her, this was the ball. It was 100% the ball. It was when, her fairy godmother comes in and dresses her, and all the animals are helping her get ready for this ball that she's not even supposed to be going to. And she goes, and that's where she meets her prince and the love of her life. And, clock strikes midnight. She's got to go. She got to go. And she drops her slipper, and then she gets back home, and it's like nothing happened. And then blah, blah, blah. The prince is like, no, I gotta find this girl. She's amazing. And so he goes searching the whole entire village, whatever. They go from house to house with this slipper, making all the eligible bachelorettes try them on, right? And they get to Cinderella's house, And of course, Cinderella has to try it on. Her stepmom tries to make it so that she wasn't there, but they find her. She tries it on, it fits, and bam! Shorty is a princess instantaneously. She marries the prince. Everything is amazing, and it's like a fairy tale, right? Happily ever after. That's the Cinderella story. Everything happens almost instantaneously after that. So I want to kind of highlight the similarities between the story and why the commentators and people might morph these two stories together. So Cinderella had the evil stepmom, which is, kind of similar to David, and how his father didn't really care for him, barely considered him his son. His father's name was Jesse, and a prophet came to find the next king of Israel amongst the sons of Jesse, because he prophesied that one of his sons would be king. And David's father, showed him all of his sons while David was out in the field, you guys. He didn't even include David. He didn't call him in from the field to be appointed to that he could possibly be in this anointing. It just had to be one of his other sons, right? What else? Cinderella wasn't invited to the ball. David wasn't invited to be possibly the next king of Israel. But the prophet, he's like, do you have any other sons? Because he just wasn't feeling those guys, right? And so David's dad, Jesse, reluctantly calls him in from the fields, whatever. And that's where the prophet's like, that's him. That's going to be, he is going to be a king of Israel. And that's where David is anointed. And for both of them, at that moment, at these hinge moments, that's where they were basically deemed for royalty. Both of them, David, when the prophet came, and then Cinderella, when she went to the ball. So that's kind of where the similarities end, because unlike Cinderella, after he gets anointed to be king, he goes back to the fields. He goes back to working. He goes back to tending to the sheep with his staff, doing his daily duties, you guys. Probably in the same day. How long does it take to put some oil on a little boy's head, right? Probably the same day he was back in the fields doing this stuff. So that's basically kind of where the stories end. So let's just hold up for a second. Cinderella did not sweat for years after she put on that glass slipper. After she put on the glass slipper, it was boom, boom, bang. She a queen, right? She a princess, whatever she ended up being. She didn't have to put in no more sweat equity. She didn't have to work hard no more after that. It was straight to the top, right? And she was princess in days after that. While David, he went back to the fields. So he went back to his sheep, big skies, and big dreams. So it would be years, you guys. It would be years before he would have the throne. It didn't happen right away. So he was anointed, and then it took years and years and years of him doing the little things. And eventually he gets the throne. So the Cinderella story is kind of how we want our dreams to be, how we see our vision and our goals happening. We sweat a little bit, and then we have this big moment, and then bam, we're right where we want to be. And it's just amazing and great and happily ever after. And that's the way we've kind of been conditioned to think that things are. And that's the way we want them deep down in our hearts to be. But what we tend to get is David, right? We tend to get the David story. So back to David. So the battle, this is like the big thing about the David story, the David and Goliath story, is the battle. So basically, the Israelites are fighting the Philistines, and there's this big battle, and the Philistines have Goliath on their side, this big, huge 10-foot tall giant. And the entire nation of Israel is basically terrified in this moment, you guys, right? So Goliath is over here taunting the Israelite soldiers from the enemy lines. And here comes David. He arrives on the field, and his brothers, per usual, are mocking him and basically just tearing him down for even being there. Now, this is David's hinge moment. This is his turning point, right? So this is his version of the ball. So do you guys know why David was there that day? Really try to think back to those Sunday school moments, back to whatever preacher you've heard tell the story. Kind of really think back. Why was David there? Why was he on the field? Let me know. Can you think of that? You guys, David was there on the field to bring his brothers lunch to bring his brothers some food, you guys, to feed his older brothers. And this wasn't uncommon. The younger brother in a big family, that was their duty. That was one of their duties. They had to go and bring their siblings, their older siblings who were able to fight on the front lines. They had to bring them food. They had to feed them, right? And that was their duty. It was not uncommon for you to see the younger siblings running out to the field to feed their older brothers, while the big brothers who are big enough, they can do the real work from the front lines. So I like that. I like that so much, because so often in developing our dreams, in our visions, it's less about grand balls and castles and fairy godmothers, and it's more about bringing lunch. It's a process of doing small but necessary things, you guys, over and over and over again, feeding the momentum, feeding into this momentum and just allowing it to build, right? So you want a bigger platform. You want to reach a ton of people, but you guys know you're not ready for that yet. You know that you need to do a lot of little things before you stand before Goliath. You know you have a lot of work to do, right? So you want to have like 2 customers. You want to stand before an audience of 2 people before you stand and try to talk to the masses and just lasso the moon before you're ready for it. You want these little practice moments, right? Where you're before less people, where you can kind of get your bearings and kind of see what works and what doesn't work. You want this time. You want these Goliath years before he became king of Israel. So I don't know about you guys, but I want to get great. I want to get great before I stand before a ton of people on a Goliath-sized playing field. I want this time to hone my skills and figure all of this out and just grow and develop as a person, so that when I get on that main stage, I'm ready. I've put in the work and I'm ready, right? I don't want to be in front of an audience of like 15,000 people and I reach 150. That defeats my purpose. And that's what happens when you try to jump too quickly. What I want to do is I want to reach all 15,000 of those people. I don't want to just reach 150. What does that do for me? That's not my purpose. I want to reach all 15,000, right? That should be you guys too. I'm sure that's you guys. So right now, you're thinking, man, the size of my dream, the size of my vision, the size of my goals, I'm just not there. It outweighs my ability by at least tenfold. And that's okay. That's how it should be right now. That's where you should be. That's a good thing. Don't get lost, you guys, chasing a Cinderella story, when what really, truly leads to a happily ever after is more of a David story. Okay, you guys? So what I want you to do is start small. Okay? Start small. Start slow. Get better along the way. Enjoy the gift of making all of your early mistakes without a major audience. Be okay with that. Embrace that. Embrace that spirit, and it's going to help you get through this time frame. It's going to help you get through this time when you're working hard and you feel like you're getting nowhere. Just know, these are your years. Just like David had his years. He knew what he was destined for. He knew it was going to happen. But guess what? He had to go back and work on those fields. He had to go back and tend to those sheep. Don't get caught up in the Cinderella story. It's not real, you guys. That's not what real success looks like. That's not what real happily evers look like. They look like David. So go, do your work, stay focused, have small audiences before you get to the big audience, and be happy and grateful for these small audiences, because they're the ones catching all the mistakes, and later you gonna be bomb. You know what I'm saying? Okay, guys, so I hope you enjoyed this Wisdom Wednesday. Like I said, this story and really this Wisdom Wednesday came from a book that I read a while ago, and it just resonated with me, so I wanted to share it again. The book is called Quitter by Jon Acuff. I hope you guys enjoyed this Wisdom Wednesday, and I can't wait to see you guys next Wednesday. Enjoy your weeks. Have an amazing week. Work hard for your goals and to get where you want to be. All right? See you guys later.